Hello, everyone. Welcome to BizTalk, presented by the South Windsor Chamber of Commerce. Today's episode is sponsored by Crystal Financial Insurance Services, providing insurance and educational services to individuals, families, and businesses across Connecticut. To learn more, check out www.crystalfinancialinsurance.com. Hosting today's episode, I'm Vasanth Kainkaryam with Michael Sanzo, and from our South Windsor Chamber of Commerce is Amy Pinard. Today's guest is David Brooke. Welcome, David.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike to get started with our conversation today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Sanzo of Imperial Plumbing Company, currently the volunteer president of the board of directors for the South Windsor Chamber of Commerce. And we're honored to have David today. David, I know I've known you for many years as you've helped me with a few real estate transactions in the past. And my experience with David and his team has always been top-notch. He asks everyone and demands excellence of them, and he always delivers. So even though I know you well, David, I know the listening audience may not. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about yourself personally, if you don't mind?
Sure, absolutely, man. Thank you again for having me. So I started as a real estate appraiser. And if you look at my bio or check out our website, you'll see that I started as a real estate appraiser back in 2009. And I really got a hang of the real estate market and learned it that way through going into people's properties, helping them with refinances. I was hired by probably over 200 banks. I worked for the federal government on their stuff that they needed me to assist with residential real estate, and basically worked in that for many, many years. And it wasn't until around 2011 that I started to get into real estate sales. And I joined a small boutique brokerage, and I've been at a brokerage or two in the past. I really learned a tremendous lot. I was in West Hartford in Blueback Square, and then jumped up to Simsbury here. But recently we've been running what's called a real estate team, and it's a little bit different than just brokerage. Brokerage is more or less like a national understanding of how real estate transactions occur. But a real estate team is a focus group of individuals committed to a set mission, as you described it already: demand excellence. And that's what we do here. We cover the entire state of Connecticut, and that's only not because we don't specialize in certain areas. We have agents that do cover the entire state, with a large hub of admin back here in our office. And then we can deliver excellence to our clients by really having a full service operation for them. So hopefully that's a little bit of background into myself. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions about that.
Cool. So David, it sounds like do you do residential and commercial?
Yeah, good question. So we've helped everyone from land purchases, we do leasing, we do residential home brokerage. That's obviously the majority of what we do. In terms of commercial, we help with office space. We've done industrial in the past. And again, this is not out of a jack of all trades. We just have individuals within our group who do specialize within those areas. But yeah, we cover both residential and commercial. In fact, right now, multifamily residential is one of the hottest markets right now. And we are seeing a tremendous surge of investors who are looking to put their money in an investment vehicle that they can feel, touch, improve, and see the value increase. So yeah, we do both.
So tell us a little bit about, I think one thing I found fascinating, right, is that, the residential market is unlike anything many of us seen recently, right? It's a buyer's market and a seller's market at the same time. And yet, the commercial world seems a little different, right? Particularly here in South Windsor, there's certain complexes where, businesses are bankrupt, they're leaving. And it's almost like you see this dichotomy between the residential market and the commercial market. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're noticing in the trends in both markets since COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for putting that demarcator there. So COVID was a position point which just stressed and accentuated what was already there. So in the residential market, we saw that interest rates were low. That's exciting. Once COVID hit, the Fed actually dropped the lending to the centralized banks to 0%, which allowed centralized banks to then lend at extremely competitive rates. That put tons of home buyers into the market. For home buyers and sellers, they're realizing a massively low inventory. Why? Because many sellers at one point said, we don't want people coming into our houses covered up with a mask, et cetera. We're not sure about how that process is going to go. And so they don't put their house on the market. What they ended up doing was creating one of the biggest surges for Connecticut in terms of the residential real estate market that we've ever seen. And in your town alone, we've seen increases somewhere around 9% year over year for values. Why? Because when there's a massive lack of inventory, we could call that scarcity. And there's a strong demand because we've got such low interest rates and a massive metropolitan area, one of the largest in the country, New York City, divesting its population, looking and trying to find the best places for people to live. And obviously South Windsor is showing up on that, right? Just from the articles you could see in Money Magazine or wherever it is, they're headed over to some of the best cities in Connecticut in order to find residents. And so when you have an influx of people, low interest rates, and a low demand, you're going to see prices start to skyrocket. And that's exactly what we saw over this past several months. Now, in terms of commercial, that as well is impacted. I always look towards jobs and employment in order to see how that's impacting commercial. If businesses are realizing that they actually don't need their employees inside of the offices at that point, then they're going to switch over to communication vehicles like Zoom, like we're on today right now. And so that's going to see a lesser need for commercial space. And then there's been businesses which have really, like I said before, COVID stressed either the success or the instability of a certain business. And unfortunately, my heart goes out to so many businesses out there that were dramatically affected by this horrible virus. And in some regards, it actually boosted many people's businesses when it comes to remodeling, housing as a whole, or places where the infrastructure did not need to be brick and mortar. Brick and mortar, my apologies.
Getting a little hungry?
Although I am hungry. I gotta say, it's early stuff.
So do you find that, I think, especially with sort of more and more new construction that we see in certain areas, as a business, do you think that people's approach is going to be different in terms of how they think about space? And do you have any advice for small businesses or newer businesses as to, how do you think about your space?
Yep. So I'll give you an example for us. So we saw this trend coming before COVID. I wish I could have foreseen COVID. We didn't, but we foresaw, and at least in the real estate industry, that many people are paying for brokerage services that have much to do with large office space, managers of that office space, custodial services of that office space. There's so much of an expense to that. We see that with houses of worship. We see that in a lot of regards. We decided to join a brokerage that was completely cloud-based. That means that we as individuals, we lease small operations in order to do our function, but we don't need large offices, and we don't need lots of staff in order to do that. What does that mean? That means that our agents can actually be compensated a little bit differently, whereas other brokerages have to pay a large amount. I think that many businesses are going to follow suit in that regard, and they're going to have what I believe to be a majority cloud-based business, and then small operation or almost like business suites that are located for in-person to person meetings. But we're finding that, hey, I can jump in and have this conversation with you over Zoom, end it, and then, start another meeting with several other people. So I think that that's really beneficial, especially in our globalized world, that I think much of our business is going to be cloud-based, and small business operations will happen at a very local level in terms of just like business suites.
And thank you, David. So there you touched a little bit on what you think's coming in the business sectors in terms of real estate. Where do you see the residential sector in 12 months' time, specifically to our area around South Windsor? If interest rates do go back up, do you imagine demand goes down?
Yeah, so in regards to that, what the Fed said is they don't see themselves moving the rates any direction north of where we are right now for about the next year to 2 years. And so because of that, I feel like we're in this position where buyers are going to still see the amount of opportunity that they have to lock in for a 15, 20, or 30-year mortgage. It's nearly, it's like, 2.5% is what we're seeing for, decently qualified individuals. For 30-year, 2.25. For 15-year, I'm seeing as low as 2.25. I mean, it's so low. And so I feel like there's going to be continued demand in that regards. I feel like the refinance market was massive this year. I'm not sure if it'll be as strong next year, given that huge decrease that we just had, but I will see people continually coming in through that market. We're always advising people on what their homes are worth and just assisting them, even if we're not selling it. So I feel like that's going to still be strong. In terms of pricing, 12 of the largest indicators of real estate trends that were out there, all but one indicated that we were going to have pricing increases over the next year. And that's simply because we're going to see people from New York that are continuing to get out of leases that are going to be, again, divesting and coming over to Connecticut. We're going to see people who were in leases here who are really just, they want to get out of rent. So let me speak to that for a minute. Individuals may or may not want to live in a large complex. People are affected differently by this virus and don't want to be in more communal living for the most part. And if they can't afford to have space that has their own yard, that has an exterior feature, they're going to want to take advantage of that. You know, I made a prediction, as soon as COVID hit, I told a bunch of friends in the real estate industry, I probably should have said it like in a larger sense. I said, Greenwich is coming back. Fairfield's going to come back. And why is that? It's because people are going to move out of that more communal space, more that urban setting, and into more suburban areas. And I have a prediction that the large house actually is going to come back, because individuals like you or me, or I have a child, and you know what? I've tried to do Zoom meetings at home. It's pretty tough. It can be difficult, right? When you've got that. And so you want that additional office space, that additional bedroom, the finished lower level, or whatever it is. And so I still see people making moves, and their employers in the commercial sense, if they say, hey, you don't need to come into the office, unless it's like one day a week or something like that, I can see people buying larger homes in order to accommodate that work from home setting. Yep.
Again, you just touched on this very briefly, but you did mention people moving out of metro areas and downtown areas. Do you see a larger demand in suburbia? You can speak more big picture. It doesn't have to be just based on South Windsor. Do you see, people moving out of New York to live in towns like South Windsor? Do you think people in Connecticut in the years coming will seek warmer clients and start fleeing south if there isn't a vaccine? I mean, do you foresee anything like that happening? You've said you're pretty good at predicting trends.
No, I want to be careful with that. Yeah, they'll screenshot this and they'll be like, see what he said? No, I'm just kidding. So I think in South Windsor, you have something that's going for you just so well. Your school systems are fantastic. So here's the phone call and here's how it goes. I get a call and it's from someone who's moving from out of town, out of Hartford County. And they're calling into a local real estate agent. They Google, hey, we want to find a good real estate agent. Hopefully we get the call. And they say, we need a town in which we can have really good schools. We're looking up online and we see South Windsor. Is that a great community in order to live? This is what it's easy to say. We have great employment. It's easy access to highways. You guys have fantastic shopping that's there. And so the list goes on. And when you keep going through that list, or Money Magazine recognizes it in other places, it's a very easy opportunity to say, yes, South Windsor is a fantastic place to not only live, but also work. And so I think that that's an easy conversation to have it, and you will still continue to see many, many buyers heading your way. In terms of buyers leaving, I think that there is opportunity to leave and go down south. And that was pretty big a year or two ago, because people were kind of frustrated, if I could speak this way, they're kind of frustrated with the tax scenario that's here. And so if they are frustrated with that, then they're going to leave for a place with minimal tax or lower taxes, like North Carolina or South Carolina, Tennessee, et cetera. We were seeing a lot of individuals move there. But I think when it comes to, your school systems and wonderful places to live with lots to do, I still think Connecticut is strong, and especially like a town like South Windsor.
I mean, personally, my experience is a lot of my friends have moved south. I am a millennial. I think we're one of the largest generations. I see more and more of my friends beginning to buy homes in their late 20s and early 30s. Do you see a lot of younger home buyers more recently in the last few years?
Yeah, I think what's driving that is two things. Number one, we already talked about COVID and living in community, et cetera, but also pets are a massive factor in for why home ownership is big. Many landlords have had to adopt a different sort of philosophy and understanding around large multifamily. So for example, we're involved with a construction company that does very, very large multifamily. And right now they won't construct certain developments without having pet facilities available. So for example, when you drive into the under garage parking area, there's actually a pet washing station. And the reason for that is because they want you to wash your pet so you don't wash it inside of your apartment and clog the pipes. And everything is focused around pets. Why? Because they want the ability for people to have pets there because it's such a massive part of Americans' lives. And so it is more difficult, I would say, to obtain a rental when you do have a pet. And many millennials like us, Mike, are very interested in having pets, and we're having less children, and so we're putting a pet in our life for a variety of reasons. And so when you go to the rental market, it is more difficult to obtain a rental with a pet. It might be more expensive. There's a larger deposit, et cetera. And actually buying a house with today's interest rates can actually be cheaper. And I can have a large fenced yard that's private for myself, my growing family, et cetera. So that's why I feel like home ownership at maybe our age bracket might be even a little bit more popular.
Now, speak to the existing homeowner for a moment. If they had a little bit of money set aside to make one investment in their home, has COVID created this urge to invest in outdoor living spaces, or
Yeah.
would you recommend something else like a bathroom?
Yes. Okay. So traditionally, kitchens and well, I will say traditionally it used to be, the mechanics of your home, the bones of your home, right? Someone would go into a property. This was like 20, 30 years ago. And they would say, wow, it's got a great roof, electrical, plumbing. We're very satisfied with, all of these sort of mechanics of the property. You should buy the home. And cosmetics was almost like secondary. It's like, well, we can always update that, and that's totally fine. And then, 15 years ago, it was just massive. HCTV came out and it was like, oh, I don't care if, my boiler's old. I can always just swipe that on the credit card and put a new boiler in. Now it's, hey, I'm going to entertain, so I have to have an amazing kitchen and bathroom and everything else like that. And that's what's sold. And so that's continued and continued. Today, people are living in their houses, and our contractors are so backed up because, Mike, interior and exterior renovations are off the charts. They're booking out 6-8 months. I talked to a guy the other day. He says, Dave, I'm booking out into April right now for kitchens. So if that's the case, and it's extremely hard to get materials, go ahead and try to get composite materials for decking. Go ahead and try to get, cabinets. Things are backed up so much. So to answer your question, where are people going to see value? I still think you're always going to see value right now in this market with kitchens and bathrooms, but never before have I seen such motivation from home buyers to get properties with exterior features where they can hang out and feel safe. Because let's be honest, we may have a group of friends. I'm not sure what your friend group is like, everyone here on the call, but you have certain friend groups that say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to remain, 20 feet away with my mask on or whatever it is, but I still want to get together with you. And what's a great opportunity? Instead of going inside the house, let's sit out in the patio. Let's, hang out on the deck or whatever it is. And so that right now is becoming a massive, massive opportunities for contractors around and also for home sellers when they go to sell.
So David, let's talk a little bit about, the Money Magazine. You had mentioned, we had alluded to it a few different times.
Yeah.
And to call it out. So, Money Magazine ranks South Windsor the 12th best place in the country to live, right? And I think, as a business owner and as a resident of South Windsor, it's great to hear that. But I think many of us were also probably a little surprised too, right? And I think, so tell me more about what you think. What does that mean? So what does that mean to those of us who are living here? What does that mean to those of us who are looking to buy or have businesses in South Windsor? Can you sort of give your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I'm on Money Magazine's website right now, and there are factors, there are requirements for how they rank this: economy and income, housing market, cost of living, diversity, education, health and safety, entertainment, weather and lifestyle. I won't talk about the weather. Okay. But what I will talk about, because it's a rainy day out today, what I will talk about though is between economy, housing market, cost of living, diversity, education. I mean, you guys are home runs. It's very, very evident to many people in the community that South Windsor excels in these areas. And I think for health and safety, maybe I can't speak to that just as a realtor, or I might not be able to speak to some certain things, but entertainment, awesome places to go. So it's obvious that we that South Windsor would show up there. Being surprised about that, I would say, I've taken a close look at your town and I'm constantly impressed by it. I think that we may be surprised by the fact because our news stations locally tell us about how many people are leaving all the time. They're not reporting in how many people move in. And that's unfortunate because when you have an awesome town like South Windsor, you want to feature, the amenities that you guys have to offer. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised by the reason that South Windsor is so attractive to live.
Awesome. So, before we wrap up, if you had to give our viewers and listeners, 30 seconds of pearls of wisdom, whether it's in the residential real estate or commercial real estate, what would that be?
Hands down, I would just say if you have a mortgage right now and you think that you have an interest rate that is probably over 3%, I would hands down contact your local professional who is a mortgage loan officer and make sure that they know what they're reputable individual and contact them, send them a mortgage statement and simply say, this is my mortgage review. Where am I in the process? Because you may be able to save yourself tens of thousands of dollars over the life of your loan just by getting a refinance. You will probably be surprised at the equity that is found in your home because you have such an increase. I'm assuming here that the viewers are going to be located in the South Windsor area. I'm telling you, your house prices have increased dramatically since a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. So if that's the true, you have perceived equity, which can be very valuable for you, and I would utilize that. Number two, I would look at if you have had any inclination to sell your real estate. Once again, I'd have it valuated by a local market professional, simply because you may realize that you may be able to get far more for your property than you ever perceived. Okay, so those are two big things. And if you're going to make any renovations on your house, I would focus on doing something on the exterior, like a patio or a deck or some sort of outdoor feature.
Awesome.
Hopefully
hey, this was
those were
fantastic.
Good pearls.
They're
Yeah.
great pearls. I think I checked off some of those on my to-do list. So that's
good, man.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for joining us, David. This was a great conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for joining today's episode of BizTalk, once again sponsored by Crystal Financial Insurance Services and hosted by the South Windsor Chamber of Commerce. And just a reminder, open enrollment for insurance for 2021 will be coming up November 1st and will be running through December 15th. So to make an appointment with Crystal Financial Insurance Services, call the office now, 860-436-9522, or check out their website, www.crystalfinancialinsurance.com. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Bye.